Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
I love podcasts. It's one of the few remaining mediums where you can have, a real substantive discussion and interesting little nuggets and gems can pop out of that talk. This week I brought on Emily Brierley, who is from the Cambridge Judge Business School MBA program. Emily shares, what makes the Cambridge MBA unique. And during our conversation, I think she drops a lot of great tips on how to give yourself the best chance of getting in to the Cambridge MBA, but also a number of other top business schools. And I'll share one of her tips here, which was to think about how you can contribute to that MBA program. And obviously, the more prepared you are, the more well-researched you are with that program, and kind of with your educational and work history and interests, the more you can put together a compelling pitch, right, for how you could really add to a collaborative environment at Judge Business School, at the Cambridge MBA, or at any top MBA program. The University of Cambridge is a prestigious, well-known university, top 5 in the world. And Cambridge itself is a tech startup hub that attracts the largest investment per capita in Europe, 5 times that of London. I think it's a really interesting program that has that entrepreneurial bent as well. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with Emily. And if you need help figuring out which MBA program fits your interest best and how you can improve your profile, go head over to touchmba.com, where we offer free school selection help and free profile help there. That's at touchmba.com. So it is my pleasure to introduce Emily Brierley, who's the head of Cambridge MBA Recruitment and Admissions, Cambridge Judge Business School, or CJBS, which I see a lot, at the University of Cambridge. Emily, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the Touch MBA podcast.
Thanks, Darren. I'm excited to be here and to have a chat with you. I'm
really excited to be here with you as well, Emily. So the first question I ask, I get straight to the point, and it's what makes the Cambridge MBA unique from the other top MBA programs around the world?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I get asked this question a lot when I'm out meeting applicants. So definitely, I'd say the Cambridge MBA is probably one of the most experiential MBA programs. And students get lots of opportunity throughout the year to apply their classroom learnings to real life scenarios. So this is demonstrated through the projects or learning milestones they undertake in each term. And the great thing about these is they're with real clients. So they're working on a real problem for a real company. And it might be with a local startup or an SME as part of the Cambridge Venture Project in the first term. Or it might be with sometimes a multinational when they do the Global Consulting Project in the second term. And these are really like the key highlights for our students. So just to give you some examples. So for the Cambridge Venture Project, we had one group working on developing a charitable infrastructure to support families affected by a group of rare neurotransmitter diseases, and another group looking at spatial AI as a product. So they were kind of interacting with the industrial drones and robotic market to identify product market fit. So really, really varied and really interesting projects. And for the GCP, these projects can take place either in the UK or overseas. So great to get some international experience if that's what you're looking for. And I think this is just really a key point of the program that allows students to gain real world experience, which is really, really important if you're looking at making a really big career transition, and with the kind of European structure of the 1-year MBA and you want to do it quickly. So yeah, I'd say it's that real world application that makes the Cambridge MBA unique.
And how is the selection process for the CVP or Cambridge Venture Project or Global Consulting Project? How is that done, and how much sort of initiative do the students have to choose those projects in terms of their length and who they work with?
Yeah, no, feel free to use the acronyms. They are quite wordy. CVP and GCP, absolutely fine. Yeah, so so it's slightly different for those two projects. So the CVP in the first term actually runs alongside their studies, and they're automatically assigned a study group and a client when they arrive. And they'll work alongside that. And it actually ties in well with a core course called Management Praxis, which focuses on team dynamics. And in the first term, it's kind of managing those team dynamics. So you're assigned to a group because it's like the real world. You don't always get to choose your team. The Global Consulting Project is slightly different. So they can choose either from a portfolio of projects that the careers team sources, or they can source their own. So we do encourage students to source their own if they want to, or if they can. It's a really great way to kind of promote yourself if you've identified a company that you want to work with post MBA. If they go through the projects that the careers team has sourced, and then how that works is the client will choose which students they want to work with them based on their CVs. So they would put their top 3, and then the client sees all the student CVs and chooses which ones they want to work with them.
So that sounds like a bit like a trying out period for a potential job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And some students might go on then and do their individual project. So this is in the summer term. They might go on and do that as like a spin-off from their GCP, and that's pretty common as well.
Interesting. Yeah, well, you beat me to my next question, which is the management praxis 1 and 2. Because I saw, I look at every school's curriculum right before we jump on these shows, and that one really stood out to me. So is the praxis 2 a continuation of sort of studying the teamwork dynamics, or is it different?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Like there's a management praxis 1 and a management praxis 2, right? In the following term. Yeah. And so I'm wondering if
is that a continuation? Yes. So in the second term, it's more about team leading rather than kind of managing the team dynamic. So leading a team, but not only that, leading a team well, like kind of being a ethically good manager as well. They do kind of follow, they're part of the same course, but it's like different steps to kind of being a manager or, being as part of a team.
Yeah. Quite interesting. And also I noticed that you have an entrepreneurship core module.
Yes, we do. We also have an entrepreneurship concentration.
Academically, Emily, where do you think the Judge Business School stands out?
So funny that you mentioned entrepreneurship just then. So it is a general management degree, and I wouldn't say we have a speciality. And I've already talked about, the experiential element, but I think something that is really strong at Cambridge is entrepreneurship. So I have spoken to alumni, current students who've told me that the reason they chose Cambridge was because of the kind of entrepreneurial environment. So its location within Silicon Fen and CJBS being at the heart of that community. Throughout the year, students will get opportunities to kind of get involved with the Entrepreneurship Centre through events like Enterprise Tuesdays or Venture Creation Weekends. And we have had some students go on and join Cambridge Accelerate after graduating. So yeah, we get a number of students that, go on and start their own businesses straight from the program each year. I think from the last employment report, it was about 18, but it's also something students will use later on in life. So the program gives them that toolkit to then go on and kind of start their own business later on in their career. But I also think it's something that the collegiate system lends itself really well to. So, networking with students studying a range of different disciplines in their colleges. Some MBAs have started businesses with peers in their colleges, such as engineers and things. So, and it is something that even in admissions, we kind of want to encourage. So we have entrepreneurship scholarships, so that we award in the first 3 rounds. So.
Yeah. I mean, if I may kind of dive into 2 of those things that you said, like for someone who has never been to Cambridge before, and you mentioned Silicon Fen, like what is Silicon Fen? I mean, is that just within the city of Cambridge, or what is that?
So it's basically Europe's version of Silicon Valley. Do you know what a fen is?
I don't.
Okay, so
maybe, yeah, let's start there. I'm embarrassed to say I do not.
I don't think I'm no expert. The fens are kind of are an area around the east of England. It's kind of very kind of flat marshland, boggy. That's the fens. So hence Silicon Fen. Obviously, we stole silicon from Silicon Valley, but so yeah, it's the Europe's kind of version of that. So it's there's loads of technology companies, loads of startups. There's, I think it's something like 1,500 companies with a combined revenue of £12 billion. Obviously, a lot of university spin-offs. So, it's got this really kind of vibrant community, entrepreneurial community that students will get involved in, like even from day one. They'll do their CVP. It's a really great introduction to the community. And students tend to, keep in contact with their clients throughout the year as well. So, yeah, that's it's also called the Cambridge Cluster or the Cambridge Phenomenon. It's got various names.
Wow. And was that really centered kind of because Cambridge was there, like centered around the university and expanded?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's amazing.
So it's university is kind of like, the hub for that.
Yeah. And speaking of the university, so I really want to ask you about the college system because I do find that very unique. Can you explain, if I, am lucky enough to get into your program as, say, a student, how that would work in terms of, do I get assigned to a college or do I apply to the colleges? And maybe just giving an overview of the college system would help, I think, our listeners a lot.
Yeah, sure. It's, the collegiate system is, it is quite confusing, even for people in the UK. Like it's not that common. It's just ourselves in Oxford that really have it. So basically you have the university, and as an MBA, any student studies at a department within the university. So CJBS is the department for the MBAs. And then you have 31 colleges as well, which are all autonomous, but all affiliated with the university. And everyone that studies at the university has to be a member of a college. So a college is really, so for MBAs anyway, it's kind of just a massive plus to your MBA. So it's where you'll socialize outside of your MBA. It's where you'll live, where you'll eat, where you'll network, and how it works for, and if you're going to do any sports or any extracurricular activities, you'll join your college, you do it through your college. So like inter-college sports is, really popular. And you'll also attend events like formal halls. So you might have seen everyone with the black Harry Potter gowns, you do that within your college, or attend Mabel's. So how it works for MBAs is you would apply to the program. And if you're made an offer after interview, one of your conditions will be to be accepted within a college. You can have a choice of the 31 colleges. Some colleges have specific academic requirements. So you might find that you're not eligible to apply to all of them if you don't meet those requirements, which is something the admissions team will give more information on during the admissions process. But yeah, you would basically give the team your top 3 choices and we apply on your behalf. That's
so interesting. And so those colleges have both graduates and undergraduates in there, right?
Yeah, so sorry, one of the things I should have said is yes, they are multidisciplinary. Yes, this is one of the key things about the colleges. Some are postgrad only, and some of our students, being mature students, prefer that. So might not want to be with undergraduates. That's absolutely fine. Everyone's got a personal preference. But yeah, you could be in a college with undergrads, postdocs, masters, other MBAs. So yeah, they are multidisciplinary.
Got it.
Which makes for some very interesting events and conversations. And you could be sat next to a mathematician one evening and the next day a philosopher. And you meet students studying the most bizarre specific things, like in PhDs, which you didn't even know was a thing that you could study. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Wow. And so another question I have is, why else do you think candidates should get their MBA in Cambridge in the UK?
Yeah, so I think one of the main, we've already briefly touched on it, but I think one of the main draws is Silicon Fen. So, kind of being located within that and being able to work with some of those companies through the projects. But I think one of the other big draws is, and actually I know it is, having spoken to some of our students, is just the size and the diversity of the class. So we're actually quite So we have usually have around 200 students in our class, and we're actually one of the smaller classes compared to some of our, our peer schools. And we really, we think this is like the best size in order for you to kind of really build a strong network, really get to know your classmates and develop an international network. And it also allows us to get to know our students better. It allows you students to foster stronger, interactions with professors and the careers team as well.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing that I found very interesting about your curriculum is I find that you have the experiential learning parts of it, but you also offer 10 possible concentrations or specializations. And it seemed to me quite a bit of flexibility in terms of the way you give your students the ability to sort of pick and choose what they want to do with their brief time there. Is that true? Or do you think it's more?
Yeah, I think one of the things and one of the great things about having a smaller class is we're able to work with students as individuals. So they're not just a number on a seat. So where the careers team, will work with the student to help them achieve whatever their post-MBA career goals is. It's not about getting into seeing how many numbers you can get into, like the top MBB firms or whatever. It's to work with that with the students individually on their kind of, career development, and also if they're making a career transition or something like that. But yeah, there is a lot of flexibility and an idea of like tailoring. But the first two terms are very much like core classes, very general. And it's as you get to kind of the third term where you'll pick your concentration and choose more electives that you'll kind of begin to focus.
Got it. Yep. No, that's crystal clear. I mean, anything else that you kind of wish more just applicants knew about the Cambridge MBA?
I think really the main thing is just kind of the strength of being a part of the collegiate system. People who go through the entire interview process and we'll get to the offer conditions, and I'll ask them for their college choices, and they'll be like, what's a college? And not have any idea and learn so much. I think it's just a really, really key part of the program. It just adds a whole nother dimension to students' time here outside of the MBA, and exposes them to a lot more kind of topics and ideas and discussions. And just kind of really helping them, be more well-rounded professionals.
All right, great. Let's move to admissions now. So, Emily, what are the fit qualities you're looking for from MBA applicants?
So, I always get asked, does the ideal Cambridge MBA look like? And any business school that values diversity as much as we do, will tell you that there's not an ideal candidate. So the cohort is diverse, not just in terms of nationality, but in terms of experience, industry, background, function. The idea being that you're going to learn just as much from your peers as you will in the classroom. But I think one thing that all Cambridge MBAs have in common, and I think have to have in common, is that they work well in teams, they thrive in a group setting, they want to learn from others. And I know you hear the word collaboration a lot, but it's really not just a buzzword at Cambridge. And even as a staff member working here, it really is just, it's part of the ethos of the school, of the MBA program, and actually the building itself. So you said you hadn't been to CJBS before, right? Okay, so see one day. CJBS is the old Adam Brooks Hospital, which is like the big hospital of Cambridge. It's on the outskirts now, and they refurbished it in 1990. And in the middle of the building, there is this huge common area. And basically, to get from one side to the other, you have to cross through the common area. So the idea is that along the way, you're going to run into colleagues, you're going to run into peers, you're going to start talking, generating ideas, collaborating. So yeah, even the building itself is kind of built around, being able to stimulate a networking environment. But yeah, it really is a very unique building. There's floating staircases, there's study boxes that look like opera boxes, and they provide rooms to collaborate and encourage both students and faculty, to bring work groups outside in the open to share ideas and concepts. So yeah, it's collaboration. Yeah. Our students, all have to thrive in that group setting.
Yeah, you make that crystal clear. And I'm just wondering, from the applicant's perspective, how they can show this through the application they submit to you. I'm not saying, how can they bring out these qualities from their experience? I'm wondering if you have any tips for them there.
Yes, I mean, we have our essay questions, and shocker, there's one about collaboration in there. So obviously just thinking carefully about that. But yeah, beyond the CV and the essay questions, I think one thing that always stands out for me that kind of really kind of demonstrates that, and I don't see it that often, but I always really like it when I see it. And it also shows that a student's thought about, they've done their research, they've looked at the ethos of the school, they have like noticed what our values are, and kind of, yes, my values align with these values, which is such an important aspect when you're researching business schools. But it's talking about what they're going to contribute to the cohort rather than just what they're taking away from it. And obviously that's a really important aspect. Obviously that's why you're doing an MBA. You're going to get something out of it. But I just always find it really interesting when a candidate flips it the other way around and kind of talks about what it is they're going to bring, especially because, collaboration is so important at Cambridge. I think it's a really strong element.
Yeah, that's such a good tip. And in terms of the values that you mentioned that you want to see kind of a link up, I mean, you mentioned you dropped some words in on your website, like, you're looking for people who, like you mentioned, have strong interpersonal skills, who are confident, resilient, creative, innovative, international experience, highly motivated. But I'm wondering if there's ones I missed there that you're really looking for, you and your team?
Yeah, I can't think of, I guess people who are like curious as well. Can't think of anything. I'm pretty sure that's on the website as well. So no, I can't think of anything else that I'd add to that.
Okay, great. And yeah, what really makes an applicant jump off the page for you?
So yeah, definitely. I mean, the standout ones are people who think, like I've just said, kind of think about it from the other side. I think it always really stands out when I meet someone that's thought carefully about doing an MBA and how it fits into their overall career plans and kind of can really articulate that. But the kind of passion really stands out. They're really driven by this. And it's just really hard not to be enthused kind of when you meet those people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if I may ask about your interview process, right?
Yeah.
Like who conducts those interviews, and, are they more sort of behavioral type interviews or?
So another Cambridge rule. So there's an old rule there's a rule at Cambridge that basically anyone that studies here has to be interviewed by faculty. So faculty interview our students. Yep. We have quite a thorough application review process. So I think, really by the time a student reaches the interview stage, the faculty member, it's kind of more about fit to the program and in the environment. Students get really worried that they're going to be asked loads of like hard questions that they can't answer, or feel that they need to kind of impress the faculty by knowing everything about their research area. And actually, it's more of a two-way conversation. It's fairly relaxed, and lots of the applicants come out of the experience and say they just really enjoyed it. And then, the conversation can lead absolutely anywhere into any topic as well. So yeah, it's 30 minutes. They're all done virtually at the moment because of COVID. But yeah, with a faculty member.
Yeah. And I mean, would you have any tips there that you can give to students about getting through that interview?
I think really it's just preparing like you would any interview, So if you were given an interview, what would you do? You'd read through your application. You'd kind of do your research a bit. I mean, at that stage, an applicant should have already done their research about the school and the program. But yeah, just kind of prepare, like I said, preparing in any other way.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah. I mean, I think I can see why they might feel intimidated by that, by interviewing with Judge Business School faculty.
Yeah, I can understand as well.
It's
they
like,
get
whoa.
really nervous, and that's why they're always so like happy and delighted and surprised when they come out. They're like, oh, it was just a conversation. Yeah. We used to do interviews on campus, had these amazing interview day experiences, with the college dinner the night before, etc. And the student wouldn't find out who their faculty member was till that morning. And you'd see them all furiously Googling the faculty member, like just before they went in, like once they knew. But yeah, like I said, they just kind of basically want to see the authentic person, the authentic you. So that would be kind of my main advice. Just be your authentic self. You don't have to, pretend to be someone. They just want to know about you, your background, your motivations, why Cambridge. And like I said, the conversation can literally lead anywhere.
Yeah. Got it. And yeah, another question I had about your admissions process is I noticed you have quite strict like academic requirements. Like I saw a 2:1 honors degree. Could you explain to me? Yeah, like for example, do applicants need to have a certain GPA average or a certain GMAT score?
Yeah, so a 2:1 is basically the UK university grading system. And we ask for the equivalent of that. So it's a 3.5 out of 4 GPA for North American students. We have a fantastic kind of like table on the main university website that will tell you what your equivalent is like for an overseas qualification of a 2:1. So it's not a hard requirement. So if students are slightly below that, then we do just recommend working towards getting a high GMAT to offset that. We don't request a specific score, but our range tends to be 640 to 740 usually.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. And then I think I had one more question. Yes. So because of the accelerated nature of your program, I'm wondering how clear you mentioned you like to see applicants with sort of a clear picture of what they plan to do, right? Over the 12 months. But I'm talking about your career essay that you guys have. I'm wondering how much clarity are you really looking for? Like how specific do applicants need to be with, say, geography, function, industry in terms of their short-term career goals? Or can it be more of sort of a direction they're moving towards? Yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts there in terms of how much clarity you're looking for.
Yeah, I actually attended an event earlier in the week. It's only Monday, goodness me. Last week, and I actually had this conversation with a perspective. I think it's okay to not be. You don't have to know every single thing that you're going to, step by step. I want to work for this company. I want to work in this location. I think you could have 2 or 3 ideas. I think it's about how you articulate that. A lot of people are doing an MBA to maybe find out more about what it is they want to do. And actually, it's really common for students to come on the program with a fixed idea. I'm going to be a consultant when I finish my MBA. And then actually they're exposed to a new function or industry that they never even thought about. And then they go off in a completely different direction. And I actually think being open when you start the program is definitely more preferable than kind of being like, this is what I'm going to do and only this, kind of go in with an open mind. So I think the main thing with admissions and when you're writing your essays, I think the main thing that you're trying to get across is that you've thought clearly about why an MBA now and why at this point in your career. And even if you don't have a very defined, a completely defined plan, that you can clearly show that and rationalize that why it's pertinent for you at this time and why now in your career and for whatever the reason is. And like I said, if you have a couple of ideas, that's fine. It's just how you just need to think about how you get that across clearly in an essay with a word limit. So, yeah.
Got it. It's crystal clear. And then in terms of your scholarships, I'm curious kind of what your philosophy is towards them and how applicants can improve their chances of winning some funding.
Yeah, I think, obviously scholarships play an important role in admissions. One thing I would say about scholarships is that I do know that for some students, it can kind of be the deciding factor when they're choosing between schools, and that's totally understandable given the financial cost. However, I don't think it should be the only reason. An MBA is a massive investment in time and money, and you need to make sure that you're going to the right school and the one that's going to be the right environment for you to thrive in and help you achieve whatever your post-MBA career goals are. So I think it's all about preparation. So financial planning should really form a key part of your MBA preparation. I attended an event in Poland a couple of years ago, and there was an alumni, not from our school. I can't remember which school he went to, and he was given a talk, and I thought the advice he gave to the students was, I don't know, he was just kind of very honest, and he said, look, you're only going to do an MBA once. There's going to be so many events that you're going to do, this and that you want to get involved in. He was like, wait, if you can't think you can do that now, wait a couple of years and do it when you can do it properly. He was like, because there's just going to be so much to get involved in, which I thought was quite interesting. But yeah, so this should form a key part of your financial planning. And so do your research, be organized. And one thing, there's loads of funding options out there. So if you're looking at external scholarships, one thing to bear in mind is I'm not sure about some of the other schools, but I know if you're planning, say, like, business schools in the UK, and in terms of our application deadlines, a lot of external scholarships have really early deadlines, and some of them you already have to hold an offer in order to apply. So you need to make sure that, you're prepared and you plan your timeline carefully in order to meet all the deadlines and all the requirements of those scholarships. So in terms of CJBS, we now have scholarships in all 5 rounds. However, there are certain scholarships that are only available in certain rounds, like the Yochum Monday, the Entrepreneurship Scholarship. So you need to make sure that you've done your research and you're prepared. And then in terms of like how students can prepare themselves, really it depends on what the application process is for the scholarship. So again, make sure you do your research, common theme here. So some might be just awarded on the discretion of the scholarships committee. So there may not be a formal application. So this is where submitting the strongest application possibly kind of comes into play. So if you're, I get a lot of questions about, I know I can do better in the GMAT. Should I wait, or should I just, apply early to meet that early application deadline? I'd say if you're even questioning that and it's not the strongest you can do, then wait until you do have the score that you're happy with, because the chances are you're only going to apply once. So you want to make sure that you've submitted the most competitive application you can, which could make you more eligible for scholarships and bursaries. And then for those that have a specific interview assessment or application, so for example, some of ours, we have video assessments. So read through the brochure, read about the scholarship, think about what questions you might be asked. Prepare like you would for any other assessment or interview. Look at kind of, what's already been done in that area. Maybe think about how you would move that forward. And kind of bearing in mind that a lot of scholarships have a kind of ambassadorial expectation with them as well. So I think those would be kind of the key things.
What do you mean by ambassadorial expectation? I think that's really interesting.
Well, usually if you're awarded a scholarship, there's kind of an expectation that you're going to, kind of assume an ambassadorial role. I don't really know how else to say it. So at Cambridge, what that means is, attending events. So for example, our Forte scholars, we're hosting a women's webinar in November. They'll be attending that and talking about kind of the scholarship and, the initiatives and how they're building upon that. So there's also that kind of element as well.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes. Or, maybe there's certain conferences or speakers or anything kind of related to that, what you win the scholarship for, you might be expected to participate in those.
Kind of, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. One question, you mentioned, be prepared, submit your strongest application, try to apply early if possible with all the research you've done. But I notice, and thank you, for example, for putting together such a well-documented presentation with all your scholarships, how to apply for them, et cetera. I think it's really great. And I wish more schools had that. But for example, scholarships by nationality or by specialty, say entrepreneurship, or
yes.
You're from a certain part of the world, say Lebanon. I saw you had one scholarship for Lebanese.
Yes.
Yeah. Those get taken up earlier. Is that kind of my understanding? For example, maybe you have a few of those scholarships and they're taken up in round 1 or 2. So even if I have an entrepreneurship background and I apply in, round 4 or 5,
Yeah, so this would be a case of kind of planning on applying where possible so you can hit those deadlines. So entrepreneurship, for example, will award 1 in round 1, round 2, and 1 in round 3.
Okay. Wow. Yep.
I know it's Lebanese one you mean. That's actually a college scholarship. And I think that has quite a late deadline of about around 4 and 5. So this is kind of what I meant about kind of doing your research, finding out when the deadlines are. And if there's a specific scholarship that you want to be considered for or to hit, then working towards that. And actually having something like that can actually help you better in planning, because you're you start planning backwards from that date. So, okay, I need to have taken my GMAT by then, and then possible retake, and then, and you know, I mean, so that actually can help you kind of plan.
Yeah. And do I understand it correctly that the highest scholarships you guys offer are about £30,000, so about half the tuition price?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah, no, we do. So it's quite rare for a scholarship to fully fund the tuition fee. So this is kind of goes in hand with that kind of financial planning and preparation. But yes, ours are about half the tuition fees, £30,000.
Yeah. Okay. And is it about like a quarter of your students get some sort of scholarship funding, or?
Oh, I think it's slightly more than that.
Slightly more. Okay.
Yeah. So not in terms of scholarships, we have our scholarships and then we have our bursaries. I think it's about maybe 40%.
40%.
Get a bursary.
What are bursaries?
Okay, so bursaries are, so again, it's a deduction of tuition fees, but they're automatically awarded. They're awarded after offers go out, and everyone that's made an offer is automatically considered for a bursary, and they're based on academic merit. So we will look at your interview feedback, your GMAT score, and your bachelor's degree. And then we'd award, so anyone can be awarded a bursary. You can also be awarded a scholarship and a bursary.
So would it help then to take the GMAT as opposed to the GRE?
Oh, no. Sorry, GMAT or GRE, depending on which one you've done, this is how it will be assessed. But this is where that kind of stronger GMAT, GRE score comes into play, as that's one of the elements we consider when looking at bursaries. Okay.
Very clear. Very, very clear. I mean, did I miss anything there? I felt like that was quite extensive.
Yeah, we did. We really dived deep into scholarships there.
All right, great. Let's move on to careers.
If we talk more about scholarships and careers, that's quite intense.
Yeah. So what do you think makes the Cambridge MBA special from a career perspective?
So I think this really comes back to that idea that a student is an individual. The size of the class. It's not just a number on a seat. So the team will work with them and offer individual and customized career development journeys. So the careers team aim is to make sure that students find the right role for them, whatever that may be. But they also, we want to create fully rounded career professionals, so equipping our students with skills and experience not that they require right now, but the confidence and the presence to kind of successfully navigate their career journey like in the future. So it's not just thinking about the first job, it's thinking longer term as well.
This is kind of related to careers, but also the program. Do the student clubs play a big role in the program as well?
Yeah, I mean, it depends year on year. So the students are kind of expected to lead on those, and it really depends on how active the students are each year. So there are some, so we call them SIGs, student interest groups, and they're actually a collaboration between MFINs and MBAs. So it's not just solely MBAs.
Sorry, what's MFINs?
Master of Finance students. So that's also a year-long program here, and there is quite a lot of crossover with them in mostly social, I think, but in some of the finance modules as well. So they'll end up working quite closely throughout the year. So some carry on year, like the Women's Leadership SIG, the Energy SIG, now the Pride at CJBS SIG, but some of them are more tailored to whatever the students' interests are that year. So things like consumer goods, 1 year there might be a SIG for it, and 1 year there might not. It kind of really depends on the students, and they kind of decide at the beginning of the year. But there are more, like I said, more established ones. So the Energy and the Women's SIGs have conferences every year, which aren't just MBA, they're business school. And I think the Energy one is even university wide. It's a collaboration with the Cambridge University Energy Network. So it really depends on the students and what they want to do each year.
Got it. And do your top industries and functions, do you see those staying relatively similar over the years? I see that, about a fifth go into finance, about a fifth into consulting, about a fifth into business development and sales. And then with industries, it looks like finance consulting and industry, as you guys call it.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
It's pretty consistent.
So, yeah, particularly for finance. So we get a lot of PE, VC, fintech, particularly popular. About a third actually go into high tech or e-commerce. And we've kind of expect that to continue. But that's kind of like indicative of kind of, where we are within the high tech cluster in Cambridge. But yeah, and then obviously consulting is still a popular choice. I think one of the things, and again, this ties in with the smaller class size and seeing each student as an individual, is we don't get companies that take like a huge number of students. I think we get a handful max that they'll take. So like Amazon might take 3 or 4 every year, or McKinsey might take 5, but we don't get huge substantial numbers of taking massive numbers. It's very much smaller numbers and wider range of different companies. I think there was something like over 80 something recruited from last year's class.
Wow. So it's very personal.
Just one thing I would say about the personalized thing, and it's actually something we hear a lot of feedback in terms of starting right from admissions all the way through to students graduating. I think that kind of ties in with the kind of community collaboration. I think we do have that relationship with our students. I got an email the other day from a student. Well, he's now a graduate, and I met him in Peru at an event 2 years ago. And then he's just messaged me. He did the program, and he messaged me to tell me he'd got a job in Singapore at Shopee. And he was so excited. And it's that kind of like, I just feel as though that's kind of just how the way the program runs, the school runs. It is that kind of community. And it's like that's the feedback we always get in admissions. Like, oh, you're so responsive. I feel as though I know you all personally. We're a small team. There's 4, 5 of us for 200, students. And yeah, so I just feel as though that's just kind of CJBS. Yeah. And also like, again, I don't think it's just students, it's staff as well. So pre-COVID times, those heady days, there'd be staff coffee at 11 a.m. in the common room every morning, and that everyone go along to, and the students will be there as well. And, you kind of just chat to people, and yeah, it's just like a real community.
I mean, I think that theme has really come through our conversation. And now that you bring up COVID, I have to ask you, what happened and how is that kind of affecting the program?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say who was impacted most, whether it was the class that were here when it first struck. I think maybe in terms of careers, perhaps they were the most impacted, just in terms of there were no offers withdrawn, but, there was a freeze. There was definitely a cautious recruitment landscape. I do feel as though there's evidence that we're beginning to bounce back. And then last year's class, I mean, like one student put it, we knew what we were getting ourselves into. We had a long lockdown. We did a blended program, then there was a lockdown. Across the UK. It went on a long time. Everyone was, working from home. The students were. I mean, it's been tough for the whole world, hasn't it? But I think the students have, they've been resilient. They've adapted so well. And I actually think there's a lot of changes that I can't see shifting back, like particularly in terms of careers and on-campus recruiter events. I can never imagine it fully being on-campus recruiter events again, because it's more convenient for the companies to have them virtually, and they can also hit a wider audience at, in different time zones. So I don't know whether they'll fully ever be that kind of shift again. But in terms of the program itself, so this year, in fact, we just welcomed our new class last week. But yeah, that's fully face to face, and like all those kind of events and activities are starting up again, but kind of, not as much as they once were. And like I said, I'm not sure whether it will ever be kind of fully go back now that everyone, you proved you can do it virtually. But I think with collaboration being such a key part and that networking in Cambridge, that the face-to-face for the teaching, for, the colleges is such an important aspect. So yeah, it's definitely good that, fingers crossed.
Oh, there's a phone there. Yeah. So we definitely all will need to up our virtual recruiting games. That's for sure, right? I mean, not just MBA students, but all of us. One last question, Emily, is about the visas.
Yeah, sure.
With the visas, how long can your graduates stay in the UK to look for employment? How does that work?
So the UK government recently introduced the 2-year post-study work visa. So I think the outgoing class are the first ones to be able to utilize that.
This year?
The outgoing, yeah, I believe so. So it means that basically you can stay in the UK for up to 2 years on this visa and work. You don't need a sponsor. You know, the idea being that hopefully after 2 years you'll have worked. If you've worked with a company, then they'll sponsor you and you'll switch to a work visa. But yeah, for up to 2 years. How it works, though, it's not. So what you do is you apply for your student visa, and then when you're in the UK studying around March time of the program, you would then apply for the post-study work visa whilst you're actually here.
Yeah, well, that's a great. I think that's a great benefit. I'm sure. I think that will help numbers of applicants applying to the UK. Hopefully.
Yeah, and no, definitely. It's really going to benefit our students because I think we have something like 80% of the class or 85% is international and needs a visa. So, but yeah, no, definitely. I think that's really, really great. And something like, just under half stayed in the UK last year. So kind of demonstrates, how much students kind of want to stay here and get that international experience. So yeah, no, it's really, really great for overseas students.
Yeah. Well, Emily, any last things you want to say before we tie this one up?
No, I don't think so. Any tips or tricks? Oh, nothing of nothing I'm sure you haven't heard before. Be organized, do your research, talk to people, attend events. Oh, and don't underestimate the essays. And also, I think actually applying for an MBA is a really, really wonderful opportunity to stop, slow down, and kind of take stock of where you are, see what you've achieved and see where you're going and have some real introspection. I've spoken to candidates and they're like, I really enjoyed the experience. It really made me think a lot about who I am as a person, what I've done, what I want to do, which I think is beautiful. I think that's lovely. How often do we get to do that? So yeah, enjoy the experience.
I think that's a great place to end our talk. Thank you so much, Emily, once again for coming on the show.
No, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Touch MBA podcast. Remember, you can get free school selection help and a profile review at touchmba.com. You can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Just search for Touch MBA.